But you've written so many different kinds of books. Is there, and different series, is there one series you think people know you for the most? Or that
I would
maybe
say the Lady Pancake and Sir French Toast series is probably my most popular. But it's interesting. Some people know the fairy tale books, and that's just what they know. And
right.
I'll also say that Dear Dragon has done has connected with a lot of schools and educators. So yeah, kind of different areas, and that doesn't even touch on the fact that I also wrote a book about coding, and so I think I have a whole bunch of different interests, I guess, or ways that people might know me, but it really is the Lady Pancake and Sir French Toast series that I think is the most. I'm trying to get the light to be better so it's on me more, but now you missed my bookshelf. Okay, anyway. But yeah,
Well, it is interesting because you're right. You have so many different kinds of books, and I was thinking what's the common thread, and one of them is that they're also creative and often have a very silly storyline to them. So where do you get your ideas from?
I mean, I get ideas from all over the place. Sometimes I get ideas from my kids. When my kids were arguing about what to eat for breakfast one day, that's where I came up with Lady Pancake and Sir French Toast. Sometimes I get ideas by looking outside and, you know, I see a couple birds chirping and I think, oh, I wonder what they're arguing about. Maybe they're chirping about who forgot to make the bed this morning, or where they want to go on vacation, you know, next summer. Sometimes I get ideas. So for the Fractured Fairy Tales, I always thought that characters in fairy tales were kind of not smart. Right. And, you know, I love fairy tales, but I loved reading them to my kids, but the characters would do things that just didn't really, nobody would ever do. So like, if, for example, if you lived in the woods your whole lives, don't you think you would know that if you dropped breadcrumbs on the ground, animals would eat them? I mean, you don't even have to live in the woods to know that. I think we all know that. Right. And if somebody said that they would give you 5 beans in exchange for your cow, I don't think that, you know, nobody would, even if they're magic beans. That's a terrible deal. And then if you walked into your grandmother's house and in your grandmother's bed was a hairy, 4-legged talking wolf, don't you think you would know the difference between a grandma, your grandma, and that wolf who you happened to meet in the woods earlier? I mean, when they look familiar. Anyway, so I just thought, what if the characters in a fairy tale were smart and they didn't want to do what the storyteller was trying to tell them to do, tell the traditional. So I think the what if question is always a good one to ask sometimes when you're thinking of ideas. And but for my newest book, My Pet Feet, for that one, I got the idea from a typo. I tried to write the word friend, and it came out as fiend. I don't know if it was a typo or an autocorrect or a combination of both, but so that's where that came from. And it's something that, you know, I thought, oh, what else would happen if ours disappeared? Why did a friend turn into a fiend? And what other funny things might there be to be illustrated? And that's where I eventually landed on a ferret turning into feet, and because all of the R's disappeared. And so I think a lot of times I think about also, and a lot of these are connected to what I want to see illustrated, what things that I think would be fun to see illustrated that I haven't seen before. Picture books have been around for a long time, and there's a lot of great ones about lots of different topics. So I try to think of things that I haven't seen done already, and what are cool things that I want to see illustrated. I want to see a boy and a dragon who are pen pals. I've never seen that. I want to see characters in a fairy tale start talking back to the narrator. I want to see pancakes and French toast racing through the fridge, causing culinary chaos. I want to see pirate dinosaurs. So these are things that I think and amazingly talented artists are the ones who are illustrating these books. So that's another thing. I could still practice my art, but right now I'm not illustrating books. It probably won't happen, but you know, you never know. But I've been paired with some incredibly talented artists who've illustrated pictures for all of these books, and that is one of the coolest things about being an author, seeing a silly idea that you have turn into turn into something that is just like I don't know, something I could never draw. So
Right.
it's always better than I could have ever expected. So.
Well, and to go back to your idea about wanting to have books about things that you haven't seen before, that leads to one of my questions about diversity, because one of the things that we loved about, for example, It's Not Little Red Riding Hood, is the fact that the main character is Black and that her sister is in a wheelchair. I mean, it seems like you have made a lot of really conscious decisions about including diversity in your books. And of course, you're a big supporter of Multicultural Children's Book Day. So why is that something that's important to you?
First of all, a lot of the characters, the skin color, even the gender at times, it's not specified in the book. In fact, in My Pet Feet, it's a person of color, a girl, a little Black girl, but it could have been a boy. There's nothing in the book, the way it was written, that it was any gender. Could have been non-binary. It doesn't. In any case, often that's up to the illustrator, and so, but I'm obviously open to. I think there are a lot of books about white kids, and we don't really need as many more about white kids right now. We need books about everybody, but what we really need is books written and illustrated by people with all different backgrounds. We need more of that. And if you think back to Ezra Jack Keats and Snowy Day, I've heard a lot of keynote speakers say that it was that book that made them want to become a picture book creator, because they saw themselves in that book. And so, it's not that I'm trying to do that, but I think that if I can inspire people to see themselves, but also as windows and sliding glass doors and all the things that people talk about with what we need in books. And you've seen the numbers of, there's more books about anthropomorphic animals and trucks than there are about people of color. So it's something that we obviously need more of, and I want it to reflect the world that we actually live in. That being said, I don't really have a say in what the skin color is, and but I do make an effort. After my first few books, I felt like I could speak up and say along with my agent, to the publishers that I've worked with, that it would be really great if you could pair me with an illustrator, either a woman or a person of color.
Oh, we just lost your audio for some reason. We just lost your audio. We can't hear you. Oh, now you're back. Okay. You were saying that after you had some success, you felt like
I had some books. I asked every time I sold a book, I would, along with my agent, ask for if I could be paired with an artist, a person of color, a woman, or both, just because it's something that I'm a white dude, and there are a lot of books by white dudes, but I like to use whatever privilege I have to try to connect with other people. So if the illustrator wants to draw, whatever they want, hopefully they want to draw someone that they can associate with. And so that's something that I've made a conscious effort to do over since my first couple of books, when I felt like I could say something and use the privilege that I have.
Right. That's wonderful. And I just want to take a step back and talk about how you became an author in the first place. You have what seems like kind of an unusual background with the computer science. What happened? Like, how did that morph into a journey of writing children's books?
Well, so I am still a software engineer. I'm taking my coffee break with you right now. It's not coffee, by the way, it's water. I'm not drinking the coffee 3 in the afternoon. But I write code, and I have kids, and I've been writing code since I graduated college in 2001. And when I had kids, I started reading a lot of books to them, and I really liked a lot of the books. And there were some that were just okay, but I thought, I want to try to write some of my own. And it took a pretty long time. I wrote some really really terrible picture books at first, manuscripts, and eventually they got a little less terrible, and eventually I wrote one that was worth publishing, and my writing kind of got better around 2013, 2014, and that's when I finally sold a book, and my first book came out in 2015, and I still am a software engineer. You don't make all that much money just writing. If I were to illustrate, I'd probably make more money, because you only make half, right? The illustrator gets half, and maybe more than half. They should get more than half. I can write 500 words sitting on the toilet, but I don't think an illustrator can illustrate a book while sitting on the toilet.
Right.
Maybe on a big iPad, but still. Anyway, but yeah, that's sort of what happened. I like to write code, and I like to write picture books, and I've always liked to write since I was a kid. I was never the best reader or writer as a kid, though. I was never in honors English or anything like that. I was a B student in English, but I liked creative writing outside of school. I think I had a lot of fun with it, with writing sometimes with friends, or writing songs and playing guitar and things like that. And I never really thought that it could be anything. And it was just something that I found fun. But yeah, so
how does your work as a computer scientist kind of go together with being an author? I mean, I know you've written books about code, but are there other ways that you see them kind of synchronizing, or not really? Or do you feel like you're making a big switch when you go from one to the other?
No, actually, I think in a lot of ways there is a lot of similarity between both worlds. First, there's writing code is still writing. And there's a lot of puzzle solving with writing code, but I feel like the way that I write, at least, there's a lot of puzzle solving in my writing too. I like to write in rhyme a lot. And so you have to get the rhythm. The rhythm is actually the hard part. You have to get the rhythm to be correct so that everyone can read it properly. And so that's sort of like a puzzle, getting that down. And with My Pet Feet, when I wrote a whole book without the letter R, I had to try to find words that didn't have the letter R in them, and then other words. Anyway, I'll tell you about that book later. But a lot of writing, even just telling a story, is a lot like putting all the ingredients together, whether it's like a recipe or something like that or not. It's still, you have to have a good beginning and a good ending, and fun characters, and an exciting conflict, and like all the different pieces, and tension rising, and a satisfying conclusion, like all of the different things that go into writing a story. And that's very similar to all the things that have to go into writing a program, or solving a problem. And so there is a lot of similarities. And I also like to say that if you want to be a good scientist, it's very important that you are also a good reader and writer. Because for example, if you want to do some research and do experiments and further science and figure things out, you're going to have to read all of the research and the papers that came before you and understand them, and so that you can then take that to the next level. And then once you discover things and you take science ahead, you're going to need to write about it so that other people can learn from what you did. And if you can't read the science that came before you, or write about the science that you discovered, you're not going to be it's not going to be helpful for anyone. So being a good reader and a good writer are sort of prerequisites for being a good scientist. So even if you're the most brilliant mathematician in the world, if you can't tell people what you've discovered, it's all for naught.
Right. I love that way of looking at it. And you mentioned My Pet Feet, so I want to make sure we have time, because I'm keeping an eye on the clock, and I know we're coming up on our time, but I want to make sure we can talk about that, because it just came out, and it is so creative. And like so many of your books, it has a lot of really element of playing around with language. So can you tell us some more about that one?
Yeah. So it's about a little girl who wakes up one day and her pet ferret has turned into feet. Yes, it's illustrated by Billy Yong. It's his debut picture book, and he did an amazing job. He lives in Singapore. It turns out that the letter R has disappeared. So the whole book is written out the letter R, and you can see in some places there are words in purple. Like I quickly sidestepped a bunch of kids on go-cats. So the go-cats are, you know, it should be a go-kart, and almost bumped into a policewoman on the back of a galloping hose instead of a horse, and so on. And the whole book is filled with these. And so, you know, this is one of my favorite spreads. "Come back," I shouted. She's chasing her pet ferret, her pet feet, because there's no ferret yet. She's trying to figure out how to get the R's back. "I chased Doodles past a fog and toad, by the old babbling book, down a tail and into a gassy field." And I didn't know the gassy field was going to be illustrated by a bunch of butts farting, but I totally approve. But yeah, so this book is about, I mean, it's about a little girl who is trying to save her pet ferret. It's about, you know, for pet lovers, but it's really, it's an alphabet book, but it's not really an alphabet book. It's more of a adventure that happens to rely on the plot and missing R's. But yeah, anyway, it's probably my cleverest book. I would say it beats out Dear Dragon for my cleverest, I would say, by a little bit.
And there's so many jokes, like you said, in the text. There's so many visual jokes that I know the illustrator added in some extra elements. So there's so much for kids to go back and kind of like almost study each page and really attend to all the different ways that you played around with the words there. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's important with a picture book. If you're going to spend close to $20 on a book, you want to be able to read it more than, you know, 5 minutes worth. I mean, yeah. One thing to spend $20 to go to a movie in a theater, at least you get 2 hours out of it. So I think, you know, you should be able to read a picture book a bunch of times and hopefully get a lot out of it. So.
Well, and just to finish up, can you tell us, I know you have a couple other books coming out this fall, including one that we're really looking forward to. It's not The Three Little Pigs, but can you tell us about
so It's Not the Three Little Pigs comes out on November 1st, and it's the next, I don't actually have a final copy of it yet. It's the next in the It's Not a Fairy Tale series. And so in the first couple books, it's not Jack and the Beanstalk, it's not Hansel and Gretel. The characters were arguing with the narrator and it didn't really want to do what the narrator wanted to do. And it's not Little Red Riding Hood. I think Red was a little bit more questioning. I didn't want to just do the same thing over and over again with each book. Red was a little bit more questioning. But she went along, you know, like, "Are you sure you want to do this?" Also in that one, the big bad wolf was also sick and was filled in. So I threw that wrinkle in, and spoiler alert, Captain Hook filled in for him. But the book's been out for 2 years, so, you know. And in the next one, It's Not the Three Little Pigs, there is a fourth little pig that wants to be the narrator. And so there's sort of a competing narrator type thing going on in this one. So, but in each of the three pigs has their own personalities too, which I think is nice, because I don't know, the point of these stories, there's lots of different angles to them, but one of them is to point out how absurd these traditional fairy tales are. And one of the things about the Three Little Pigs that I find silly, it's a story about pigs building houses. Why is that interesting? Why is that one of the most famous fairy tales? I mean, like, I understand, like, the point of the story is to learn that you should take your time and use better materials and things like that, but even that is anyway. But so yeah, that comes out on November 1st and is illustrated by Edwardian Taylor. And the Great Caper, which is up there, that is the 5th book in the Lady Pancake and Sir French Toast series. And in this book, so each of the Lady Pancake books has a fridge problem. So in the first one, there's only 1 drop of syrup left. So, you know, has anyone ever fought with the sibling over the last bite of something or the last sip of something? So that's what happened. In the second one, it was the case of the stinky stench, which is, you know, has anyone ever opened the fridge and smelled something kind of funny and not known what it was? So that's that fridge problem. The third one is Mission Defrostable. Sometimes when you open the fridge, I don't know if you've ever like reached for something in the back and it was just a little bit frozen or too cold, so that when the fridge starts to freeze over. In the fourth one, Lady Pancake and Sir French Toast goes stale in Short and Sweet. And so, you know, has anyone ever opened the fridge and smelled and reached for something they were really excited to eat, but it was spoiled and gross and moldy? And so that's a fridge problem. And so in this one, I don't know if you can tell, but the fridge problem is that the light goes out, or how in this case it gets stolen by the evil Count Caper. But yeah, so the fridge goes out, the light goes out in this book. And also with each of these books, I like to try to switch up the genre. And so in the first book, it was a race. The second was a mystery. The third was an action adventure spy thriller. Short and Sweet was sort of, they get shrunk into little children. So it's sort of like a sci-fi comedy mixed with a magical body swap, like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids and Freaky Friday or something, or Big. So this one is a heist. It's a heist. Lady Pancake and Sir French Toast get the whole gang together and have to break into the Las Veggies Tower. So it's a Las Veggies heist, not Las Vegas, Las Veggies.
Las Veggies, I love it.
Yeah, and so that is The Great Caper, and that comes out on November 15th. But My Pet Bee is out right now. So.
Yeah, so everybody go check it out and get your copy. And thank you so much for joining us.
Would it be okay to take one more minute?
Sure.
I'd love to share a couple books that I really love. So a couple of my favorite recent picture books are, so this is Anzu the Kaiju. It's written and illustrated by Benson Chum. He is actually Disney animator. He worked on movies like Frozen and stuff. It's awesome. It's about a kaiju kaiju's like a Japanese monster that destroys cities like Godzilla. But in this case, the kaiju's power is to make flowers. And so he's struggling with the fact that, the Anzu is struggling with the fact that he doesn't have a power that demolishes places. So it's adorable. I highly recommend it. Another one of my recent favorites is this one, Lakshmi's Mooch. It's written by Shelley Anand and illustrated by Nabi H. Ali. And it's a great body positivity book. And it is about a little girl who has a mooch, which is like a little mustache, tiny little hairs that grow and on her face, and how she deals with it at school. And it's a very uplifting message, and it's a great story. And another one I really love is Miss Rita Mystery Reader, which is written by Sam Donovan and Kristen Wickstead and illustrated by Violet Tobacco. And it is about a drag queen story time and everything that goes into this boy's father being a drag queen and having story time. And another one that I've been really into lately, it's from a year or two ago, but Zonia's Rainforest, written by Juana Martinez Neal. This one is, it's a little girl who is a Peruvian indigenous person, and her experiences in the rainforest, and it's got a little bit about climate change message in it as well. And I highly recommend that too. So anyway, I just wanted to share those books before we go. I know we're supposed to keep it short, but
no, that's fine. I just want to mention that for those who want to keep an eye on our series, because we actually are going to be interviewing the last author,
Juan Martinez Neal.
He's going to be on here. I can't remember the date. We just confirmed it, but it's later this fall. So
awesome. Cool.
Yes, thank you for sharing those. That's so fun.
I'll definitely be watching then.
Now you made me think, I should be asking other authors what else they're reading. That's a great idea.
And I'll puff and I'll blow your house down. That's if you do not let me in. Not by the hair on my